Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar today. My name is Angela LaFay. I'm a Senior Technical Support Specialist here at ATG, and I will be showing you how to create a deployment with the new Autodesk Online Deployment Creation Tools. There is a chat in the Zoom Messenger that you can use to ask questions. There's also a question and answer panel, so I'll have both of those open. And if you have any questions, please feel free to type those into the chat or the question and answer dialog box. So looks like some more people are coming in, so I'll just give you a brief introduction about myself while we're waiting. I have been with, in the Autodesk channel starting in 2006. I took a couple-year break and came back in 2015 with CADsoft Consulting, and then, of course, ATG purchased CADsoft in 2017, and the rest is history. I moved to the technical support team shortly after ATG took over. So today, I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible, hoping to keep it around 30 minutes. Again, just going to show you how to create Autodesk online deployments. They just rolled out a new deployment creation process where you're doing it online. It's available for most products now. It launched last year with the 2021 release of Revit and 3ds Max. And now for 22, you've got a lot more options in there now, AutoCAD and all the verticals. And so that's what we'll be covering today. And we're just going to go over just common deployment questions, who, what, when, why. I'll show you your account management portal, the custom install routine, all the nuances of customization for CAD, Revit, and the other products, adding extensions, specifying custom settings, and then saving and running the deployments. And then we'll do some question and answer at the end. The target audience here are IT administrators and CAD and BIM managers. This is kind of more on the advanced side of install. So with that said, deployments are packages of the installation that can be used to batch install on multiple computers. So you can use a deployment software to push it out, or you can create a batch script to push it out. We'll get into that a little bit later. The folks who can create online deployments include Autodesk Account administrators. Primary and secondary administrators can do this. And sometimes the regular install files are better. So it's appropriate to use deployments if you have a need to install on multiple machines in bulk, or you have custom installation paths, you want to install a certain build number, or add extra extensions, things like that. But yeah, it's mostly just to, I've got two of them there, need to install multiple programs in bulk. So that lets you create a package that has, for an example, AutoCAD and Revit both in it, rather than doing one at a time. All right, but sometimes regular install files are better. In most cases, they're better just because most people just use the default settings. If you only have a few computers, you probably want to use the default and then customize after the install, or migrate custom settings in manually on each computer. If you don't have an IT support provider that's familiar with Microsoft and just technology in general, then you might be better served using the regular install files. So this slide is just about the Autodesk Account Management Portal. Basically just showing you around in there a little bit. So I mentioned already, as of the 22 software releases, you can create online deployments for just about any product. So with that said, I'll go ahead and pull up the manage.autodesk.com website. This is the account management portal. Of course, it already has me signed in. So I'll go ahead and sign out real quick so you can see the login screen and the password reset. Okay, so here's the login screen. After you put your email address in, you can plug in your password, or you can do a forgot password. If you click forgot, it will send you a link to reset the password. And you'll just click through and finish that. But if you know your password or your browser saved it, then go ahead and sign in. You can also click the Stay Signed In button for easier access next time. So your administrator will want to log in, and they should see these menu options on the left-hand side. User management is where you assign the users to use the products. Subscriptions and contracts shows you kind of what you have, what the expiration dates are, and what team to assign it on. Here's the custom install button that we'll be focusing on today. But the regular installers can be found on the All Products and Services page. So it's just view downloads once you locate the product. And then you've got your various release years in here. There is a virtual agent that you can use that has additional older releases that you can get. But that's another topic for another day. One quick thing I wanted to address with the Autodesk account, there are some nuances to the browser. I've noticed that cookies and the cache will hold on to the login. So sometimes if you're using two logins on the same browser, it might get mixed up and not sign the right person in. So just something to be aware of. What I do is I have a special browser just for Autodesk. I use Edge for Autodesk, the Autodesk website. And I have my browser set up to allow pop-ups for one, but I also have it set to clear my cookies and my cache and my history every time I close the browser. That way I get a completely clean slate every time. All right. So I'm just going to go over a couple of slides and then we'll get into the actual process. So this is what it's going to look like after you hit custom install. You'll get a list of products available, and then you can basically just follow the prompts to get it set up. You'll see in this screenshot here, you've got tons of options for customization. Storage location for your content, drawings, materials, templates. You can not change these settings after you create the deployment. So a new deployment would need to be created if you need to make any changes. But it actually is a pretty quick creation process compared to how it used to be. Revit customizations, we'll get into that in just a minute. So at this point, let's go ahead and get into the actual deployment creation. I recorded it just to be able to pause and skip around if we needed. So here we've got manage.autodesk.com, and then we're just going to go to the custom install button. And this is where we create our online deployments. First box is about your license type. Most software, Autodesk software now, is the Autodesk ID, or the sign-in type. It used to want a serial number. You'd activate it once and you'd be done. But now it's a sign-in where it checks on a regular basis. The other option in there is network, which is a multi-user, and that's where it pulls the license from your own license server. So once you pick your license type, then you select the products that you want to add. And yes, you can add multiple products into the same deployment. This is a pretty cool new feature. There's version to install. And if you wanted to have a certain point number on there, you can pick the specific version and call up an older build number or release year in the case of Revit, where 21 is also available. All right, so once you open the customizations section, you've got a number of options here. And I, for the purpose of the demonstration, left the defaults in there, but I just wanted to kind of show you the options here. So you can customize security settings. You can add trusted locations and domain names, which is recommended, especially if you have strict internet security settings. And you'll notice it auto-populates the trusted domain names, which is good. This helps the licensing services work better. All right, then you have some other options when searching for executable files. You can exclude the start in and drawing folders, or you can include the start in and drawing folders. They recommend you exclude, so we'll leave that setting as is. And this is about the ACAD ISO. And then you've got Express tools that you can add. I recommend leaving that checked as well. Online content, it's best to leave it checked. If you start running into performance issues, you might use the offline help and download the help manual, but for most people, leaving it checked is fine. Error reporting is what Autodesk uses to basically know what to fix after the initial build. So it is good to allow Autodesk to see those error reports. There's an option to create a desktop shortcut for AutoCAD, and then there's also an option to specify a custom AutoCAD profile, which is a .arg file. So basically, just put your the name of the deployments in here. It'll also let you do a description if you wanted to add an additional description. And then you've got install and you've got deploy. Under deploy, you've got your deployment image path and your deployment log file path. I put everything on my D drive in Autodesk. When I was doing this video, you actually need another folder under that, so I corrected that later on. Okay, and then installation path. The default is C program files Autodesk, and that's fine for most people. But if you're like me and you have an SSD drive where your operating system lives on the C, those drives are expensive and they don't come with much space unless you pay a ton of money. So a lot of companies will get a D drive that's just a regular one. It gives you more space for less money. So I put everything on my D drive. I just created a program files folder with Autodesk under it. And then after you hit agree and download, you get this executable file that it puts into Windows. You can show in folder location to get to it. There's an executable file right there, and we'll get into what to do with that one next. But before we get into that, I just want to talk about a couple of nuances about Revit customizations. All right, so with Revit, we've noticed that if you're wanting to push out your custom settings, it's best to do that with the Revit INI file. as opposed to the fields that they provide. Real quick, Andrew Pena is asking if we can increase the zoom level. I'll show it again with the actual Autodesk account, and that should have better resolution. Sorry about that, but yes, I will definitely show that. So yes, so as it says here, when customers specify custom content locations, it could break the deployment, unfortunately. This Autodesk blog post has clarified that there were some nuances. It's a little new of a process, and they haven't worked out all the bugs yet, basically. So by default, the content location is on the local computer C drive. Folks will be tempted to change it to their network location. But the problem is it's going to install a different copy there for every deployment install that you run. So it's best to just leave it on the C drive and then include a custom Revit INI that points to the shared location. Hopefully they fix that soon, but the Revit INI file is the best way to push out your custom content locations. All right, this part is about adding extensions. It's pretty self-explanatory, so I won't go into it too much, but here's some of the options available for a few of the products. And if you don't need all of the extensions, I would recommend taking them out because it cuts down on the size and it reduces your installation time. Okay, and this is the install settings that we saw. This gives you a little closer look at it. This is what it looks like for Revit specifically. That install and deploy button, a little more about that. The deploy option will create a network deployment for multiple systems. The install is just for this particular system that you're creating the deployments from. And as promised, we can take a closer look at that. I'm going to do AutoCAD and Revit for this example. All right, so here's that specific version that I was talking about. You can use different build numbers or different release years if the online deployment's available. Latest version is the best option though. So here's all the settings, and these are the folders that I was talking about leaving on the C. And then here's all these additional components. You probably want to remove a lot of the content that you wouldn't be using, all these additional languages and things like that. And if you have a custom Revit INI file, specify the name of the file in this box. And once you do that, it tells the deployment to not use the regular one called Revit.ini. And then once the deployment image is downloaded locally, you can add the custom Revit INI file under the deployment image folder. And then when you push out the deployment, it will apply those settings to the computer. You can also push it out through a script after the fact. You can just say, take this file and put it into this folder. And you would just put it into the folder where the Revit INI file lives. Okay, and then I'll just give you a closer look at some of this. Hopefully you can see this. I can zoom a little bit on the browser. There we go. Hopefully that's better for you, Andrew. Okay, so back over into the presentation. Okay, this part is about saving the deployment file. So after you click create, you saw this part already. It downloads an executable file, puts it into your default downloads folder. show another quick video of this procedure. This one I did have to pause a little bit here and there because it takes a little longer than the executable generation. So you go to the folder, double click your executable, say yes, put in any passwords that it may ask for. That part depends on your settings on your network. All right, so this is one of the spots that I paused in. Don McGill asks, are there any particularities if using Revit server in multiple physical locations? I haven't noticed any nuances in that regard. That's not to say that there aren't any, so I will do some research for you, Don, and let you know if I can find any other instances where people have noticed issues around that. So after it tells you the deployment's created, say OK, and then you'll notice in the folder where you specified, you've got a deployment package. You're welcome, Don. I'll get to your question in a second, Joel. Okay, so here's a BAT file, and I'm going to show you how it works on a single machine. So I double-clicked the BAT file to launch it. That's the script. And opens command line. It does its own thing, but you'll notice that window pops up, and you'll see the progress of the install. And after it's done, you'll notice in the Start menu, the product is there for use. So that is the install where you're doing it on the local machine. Okay. Joel, if original release software has already been deployed and installed, can this be used to deploy updates to users? What's your best recommendation for handling updates as they're released? That's a great question. I wouldn't recommend using this procedure to push updates and hot fixes. I would use a deployment software tool to push those out. This is mostly for brand new installs of a new release here. And Joel, I can get more into depth with you in the question and answer section later if that didn't answer the specifics. So just let me know if you need more clarification on that. Okay, so this is kind of what I was talking about a little bit. If you're installing on the same system that the deployment was created on, we'll go to the running the deployment, and you already saw that part. But if you're not installing it on the computer it was created from, then you can copy and paste the executable file to the server, but just make sure that the deployment image path folder that you put in is created on that folder first before you move it over and launch the executable. So you can move the executable and just launch it and follow the prompts on the screen. Okay, so this is part one. You already saw this, so I won't go into much more detail on it, but here's some of the screenshots that we saw. I also am going to send you this. Actually, I'll do that right now. In the chat is a link to this presentation if you want to save it for later. Okay, so we already saw that, so I'll go ahead and go through this. On to part two. This is probably the part that you're most curious about, I'd imagine. So you can use BAT files with installation scripts to distribute programs to computers over the network. The BAT file lives in the deployment folder if you go under image and then script. And this file has different commands that that do different things that you can modify if you'd like. An installation script uses paths to point to the location of the product setup exe file. And the file must reside in your installation media or at the network location. And you must have administrator permissions on the computers where you're installing the products. Other options to push the deployment from the server. You can add and run the bat file from the server with group policy and Active Directory. Or the other option would be to use a third-party software or Microsoft SCCM. I know Andrew Pena uses PDQ Deploy. They do have a free version of that with pretty good capabilities. There's a paid version that gives you more bells and whistles. But these are the top few that I found when I was looking for the best deployment tools on the market. SCCM is Autodesk's recommended method for pushing the deployment out from the server to the workstations. And here's a link in the document about that article, how to find it. It's got a ton of information. I just clicked it. All of these have additional information and further links. So lots of good information there if you want to learn more about how to do this with SCCM. But regardless of which method you're choosing, the most important thing to remember is that you want to test it on a system first before you push it to the rest of the machine. So pick a test machine, push that deployment out to just that first, and then test it out. Make sure it works well before you go and put it on all of the other machines. This slide is about silent mode. It allows you to basically install the program with no user interaction. So it just goes a little smoother without any user input. And basically you would just edit your bat file to tell it to do it in silent mode. And the handout, the link to this handout is in the chat. Because I know it's a lot to take in, this slide. So now we're at the question and answer portion. Let me check on the question and answer box and see what we have left here. Okay, more information on updates. All right, so with that, I'll take you to this knowledge base article. This one goes into, actually, the link, my link skips right down here. So this is what they recommend doing. Downloading the update from your portal, create a new folder in the shared network location. That's where you're going to place the update file and the install script. That could be a bat file. Yeah, and basically just tell it what you want to do in the script, and then make sure you save it. Select all file types and save it with a .cmd. Create a package in SCCM. And point to enter package information, point to the network folder that you created with the script inside. Enter your program information, hit next. Basically just follow the prompts on the screen once you get to that point. But after you finish creating the package, it can be distributed and deployed just like any other software. There's other ways of doing it. This is just Autodesk's recommended method, SCCM. At the end of the day, I would recommend whatever one your IT person is most comfortable with, or whatever one you're most comfortable with. You can also use PowerShell DSC. You can use Active Directory group policy objects. Let's see. There is if any of the updates are not a type of file that your deployment software supports, you can use free third-party file converters, basically, to create an MSI or whatever it is your deployment software needs. So if the service pack and update is an executable, and say your deployment software wants an MSI, you can easily convert that with a third-party product. MCO MSI Package Builder is one that'll convert it for you, so you can push it out with group policy objects. And anyone that wants this information, it's not really Autodesk doesn't necessarily provide tech support for it. They just kind of point you in the right direction and say, here's the information. And that's why I say use the one that you're most comfortable with. Okay, so in the chat, you have a few links here. Does anyone else have any other questions? If so, feel free to put those in the chat or the question and answer panel. I realized the chat did not paste all of the links and the content that I had for you, so I'm going to paste it here. Yeah, I'm not an expert. They don't really train us on how to do that, but we're happy to point you in the right direction. So I'm just going to save this and I'll upload it for you and give you a link to it. Okay, I'm going to upload it to my share file and I'll have a link for you in just a second. Sorry for the delay here. Okay, it is uploading now. Sure. Jorge has a question about adding add-ins. So let's just go back to the Autodesk account for that. So here they are. Here's a batch print utility, e-transmit, work sharing monitor, generative design, various content, product feedback, personal accelerators, really important if you're doing work sharing. Okay, the file is uploaded about the installing service packs. So check the chat for that link. See, I would uncheck all of this content. It just sticks in the registry and it's kind of annoying to remove. If you don't need metric content, you know, to uncheck anything that you don't necessarily need, just to keep your file sizes down. Okay, here's some extensions for Revit that you can choose to add if you'd like. These little plus signs go into more detail about what each of these does if you're not sure. And then here's some different content. If you are putting all your content on the network, then I would leave all of these unchecked because of that, those nuances of Revit that I was mentioning. If you check these, it's going to put a copy of it on every C drive, or if you pick a network location, it'll put a copy of all this multiple times on your network location. So, so leave all those unchecked if you're not putting it on the C drive. But here's a blog with a link. The document has a link to this blog where it talks about that. So I'm sure they will work this out very soon, hopefully by the next release, but just something to keep in mind for now. Okay, so hopefully that answered the question about add-ins. And then I just wanted to show you this product updates button right here. This is where you can get the updates that that Joel was asking about. And my preferred method of using this page is once it loads, click this magnifying glass in the upper right, and if Revit is what you're using, just type in your product and release here, hit enter, and then it's going to find just stuff pertaining to that product and release here. So you get a much shorter list of files that way. So if you're looking for a specific update, just type what you need in this search and it'll find the right one for you. Single sign on and it's so forth. Okay, Don has a question. If you want to install CTC tools, BIM Project Suite on all installs, can you do that? So this would be about third-party applications. You wouldn't add those to the Autodesk online deployment. Those would get pushed out separately after Revit's installed or AutoCAD. So you'd create and run your deployment first on all the machines, and then you would be doing a separate deployment for whatever add-ins that you have. Just make sure that CAD and Revit and all your Autodesk software is closed before you push out any third-party add-ins to make sure that the install is successful and seamless. You're welcome. Does anyone else have any other questions? I will link the main presentation one more time because it's buried under some of the content that I pasted in there. So the link at the very bottom of the Zoom chat is the PDF of the presentation itself. And the link right above that is the Word document that I created about the best ways and recommendations to deploy product updates. (12:38) Pacific time, so we met our duration. That is good. Thank you so much for attending today. We really appreciate your business and your time. As always, APG support is here to help. If you have any other questions, just let us know. Oh, looks like there is another question. Can the user, Michael asks, can the user who is logged in and installing be added to the log, not just the computer name? Can you clarify that for me a little bit, Michael? Which log? And then Dawn isn't seeing the links in the chats. So there's a separate chat box, that's why, but I'll put these in here for you, Dawn. This is the updates. And then here is the presentation itself about deployment, creation. If anyone else needs these links in the question and answer box, let me know and I'll send you those directly. Joel, I'll go ahead and send you the Word document since you're the one that asked about that one. Okay. And I will do some research for Dawn about Revit Server. Jorge was looking for the links as well. There you are. All right. Oh, in the install, okay, thank you, Michael. In the install log, it only lists the computer name. So you're wondering if you can have it write the username in the install log. That's a good question. I am really honestly not sure about that one, so I'll have to research that one for you. So install log, change the computer name to username, or include both. I'll find out on that one for you, Michael, and follow up with you on that. If anyone else wants that answer, just type it into the question and answer, and I'll make sure you get it as well. Andrew says the links aren't coming through in the chat either. Interesting. Okay, I did a private message to you, Andrew, in the chat box with the links. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up then. I owe Don and Michael answers to their questions. And if anyone else needs anything, like I said, just let us know. You can reach us at this toll-free number right here, 1-888-615-0677. You can also submit support requests through the email support@atgusa.com. Well, thank you again, and have a wonderful day. Have a great long weekend if you have an extra day off for the holiday.